Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Elements of Success, Alchemy for an Embodied Life. I'm Safrianna Lughna, and today we're going to talk about redefining success, which is something that I'm super passionate about. It's pretty much my whole definition of the work that I do in the world is helping people literally redefine their definition of success so it can be from a soul-based level instead of society's definitions of everything. So, welcome. So glad to be back with you here today, and let's dive in. So, we're going to be talking about success, what it means to you, what it means to the world, all of everything in between. And just in case this is your first time getting to know me, I'm Safrianna Lughna, the Queer Spirit Guide. I'm a licensed clinical therapist, a community mental health specialist, a transformational mentor, author, speaker, etc. And most importantly, a druid. I'm going to be talking a little bit about that again today because it really is the cornerstone of this program. So let's talk a little bit about the prior episode, just a couple of refreshers in case you either didn't get to see that episode or you are like, oh my gosh, it's been a few weeks. What did we talk about? So I really explored how nature is who we are and how modern disconnection has really become a problem for us because we are constantly living indoors. We use these very artificial made up schedules. We're constantly immersed in the digital world. We have all of these distortions and distractions that are around us all the time that are causing us to disconnect in many ways from nature and who we really are. And then, of course, there's personal, communal, and planetary well being. I talked about how those are all interrelated. And the more that we take care of the planet and the community, the more we take care of ourselves, the more we take care of ourselves, the more we take care of the planet and the community, and how all of this goes together. And we talked about lots of different ways that you can connect to nature's wisdom and to her rhythms. And I reminded you that simple daily nature connection can be the first step towards improving the quality of your life and your well-being. So I gave everyone an invitation to connect with and or listen to the natural elements in your home environment. It's totally okay if you haven't started that yet. But remember, there's no time like the present. And I do want to invite you to grab a notebook today, some kind of journal, if you want to really actively participate in some of the things that I'm going to talk about, because we are going to be thinking a little bit about what success means to us and what it could look like. So, why is it so important to me to step into my druidry now more than ever before? I talked a little last time about how I have been a practicing druid since I was 18 years old, where I literally woke up out of a dream one day and I was like, I'm a druid and I don't know what this means. But I went on and I did some research and I figured out what it really meant. And I started to live in more of a natural lifestyle. I started to live more in tune with the seasons. But I still ended up being a part of traditional careers. I was a public school teacher for many years that kind of forced me outside of those cycles. And that I couldn't really fully follow those rhythms because I still had to operate under, modern capitalistic, colonial thinking and ways of being, which we're going to get in today. So be prepared for some spicy talks today. But Druidry at its core is about seeing spirituality in nature and the interconnectedness of all living things, and being able to apply seasonal wisdom, look at natural patterns, and really honor the sustainability of the planet. And Druidry sees the balance in light and shadow and growth and rest and giving and receiving, life and death. It's all a part of these greater forces together. And I led this path from this childhood tree climber to a teacher and then trauma therapist and now an earth advocate and a storyteller as well. And all of this has been for a reason. I have had to really build this druid muscle and really embody and embrace that and go through a lot of the shadows with it, because I also saw druidry be used for really capitalistic reasons that also felt out of alignment. Like, I had to find my definition in myself, my authenticity, my definition of success, so that I can show up and really dive into the teachings in a way that are fully aligned with my values. I had to do this because that's what I teach other people to do. So if I'm not doing it myself, I am not setting other people up to believe that they can be truly successful. So again, our well-being, communal well-being, planetary well-being, all interconnected. And that's part of why I'm stepping into my druidry now more than ever, is to support people through this. So let's start to talk about success. Again, I warned you this is going to get a little spicy today, and there are some full info slides. If you're watching this, you'll also be able to access the slides. So, of course, don't worry about getting everything down. But I do highly suggest jotting down in your own personal notebook to make that brain body connection if there's something that really calls you out or speaks to you. That's why I really encourage you to use this program in a way where you are engaging, responding, having some kind of emotional response to what's coming up so that you can use it as information. As I read through some of these and share some of these things, you might see yourself in them. And that is important as you begin to renavigate this. So, the success paradox. We've been told that external achievement equals internal fulfillment, but it really doesn't. I would love to know how many of you out there grew up with the story that if you worked hard, you got good grades in school, you went to college, or you started a career, that everything would be taken care of and all would be well. Because that's the story that so many of us have lived in and been a part of, was this very, I live in the United States, this very American dream, this very, if you just follow the steps, you're going to get there. Uh, lie that was told to us. And instead, most of us are, feeling really not great. And so we see these sorts of symptoms of down below. So success on paper, what we were told success was by society, usually looks like having an impressive career title and credentials, having that resume, that robust resume that shows all the things that you've done. Even from the time of high school, it was like, oh, you need to make sure you're doing good electives and after school activities that the colleges are going to look at to look favorably on how much you overwork and overdo, right? Like it's this hustle competition in many ways. And they look at success as your financial achievements, how much money you have in the bank, how many assets you have, this idea that your net worth represents your self-worth. And I know so many of us have gotten lost in that trap. We think success looks like having that social media highlight reel, right? Being able to show off the fancy vacations or the luxury experiences, but it's not that all the time. It isn't for anyone. And this idea that we can titrate ourselves down to these shiny things is just it's not good for us. External recognition and rewards, right? It is good. We love to be validated by people outside of ourselves, to be connected with others and have this feeling of being seen and witnessed and held and all of that. And I'm not arguing against that, but the need for external recognition of I'm not worthy if my supervisor, my boss, this company over here, this potential client, if they don't see me and they don't promote me, they don't sign up with me, they don't whatever, if I don't win that award or I don't get that promotion, like I'm not worthy. So we really end up putting a lot of our definitions of success on those external metrics. And then perfect looking relationships. Just thinking in my own history, there was a time where I was deeply burnt out. I was a full-time teacher. I was going to grad school. And on paper, it looked like I was really successful because I had a career. I was still pursuing another career. I was in a relationship with a person who, from the outside, everyone thought we had like the number one best relationship. I would hear people say all the time, like, oh my gosh, I wish it was like you. But it was a curated public image of what people saw. It wasn't really the relationship. It wasn't really my career. It wasn't really my success. It was my chaos and my hustle and my grind. And people were complimenting me on that, right? I bet some of you can relate to that. Getting compliments on things that really don't light you up at all, but it looks like success on paper. So people are cheering that on, even though you may be feeling absolutely depleted. So having a busy calendar full of commitments can also look like success, right? Oh my gosh, you're so busy. You must just have so many things to do, right? A lot of that is self-made at the end of the day. A lot of that busyness is really just hustle and grind culture that we have so adopted and internalized in ourselves that even when we have a break, we insist we have to keep going and keep grinding. So, what does this actually look like, right? It looks like exhaustion and burnout. It looks like no connection to what we really want anymore. We have anxiety about keeping it up because we know it's not sustainable. We literally may begin to feel ill. I know I literally developed fibromyalgia, right? A mystery illness in ways that I call a disease of the spirit, of the body being like, I cannot do this. This is too much. This is not sustainable. It's not for me, right? So, physical symptoms of stress uh, begin to really show us that we're veering off course. We can feel really alone even if we are surrounded by people, because those people aren't seeing us for who we are. They're seeing us for that success on paper of what they think we should be doing, right? And then we are starving, we're craving finding meaning and purpose in our lives, but we don't feel like we have meaning and purpose in our lives because we're, again, hustling and grinding by society's definitions. Ugh, and I get it, because again, I have lived this, I have been here. I still struggle with the productivity and continuing to heal from burnout because it takes time, right? We have to be so gentle with ourselves. We have to be willing to see it for what it really is and that we are really contributing to this. And in some cases, I just want to throw this out there too. I can't tell you how many people I know who have hustled and grinded, and they get into this lifestyle that they can afford, quote unquote, because they have the financial means, because they've climbed that corporate ladder, they're working that high paying job, they've made it in the industry, but now they're stuck. They feel literally trapped because they're like, if I back away from this, if I quit this job, my whole lifestyle I've built is going to crumble around me. And that's why I really encourage everyone to sit with, what does my soul aligned success look like? What does success really look like for me? So that we can live and create the means that actually light us up. So, I just want to spend a little bit more time here talking about the high price of modern achievement and what this really looks like, because we love to put blinders on and pretend, oh, it's not that bad. Everyone's doing it. It's fine. I'll get to retire one day. I'll sleep when I'm dead. I hear these things all the time. But when we are pushing past what success really means to us, it starts to show up in physical symptoms, emotional symptoms, mental, spiritual, communal. It starts to impact every layer of how we show up in life. This is big stuff. So, the chronic fatigue, the exhaustion, the sleep disturbances, insomnia, tension headaches, body pain, digestive issues, weakened immune system function, shallow breathing. I remember the shallow breathing really bad. I used to literally have to consciously think about breathing because I would just be up here, like practically hyperventilating all the time because I was so stressed. So, all of our physical symptoms, I like to really, really highlight this. All of our physical symptoms are just the universe inside our body trying to get our attention. I've heard them called the entities within. One of my friends calls it that. These little messengers within us that are like knocking on our door louder and louder and louder, trying to get our attention. Our physical symptoms tell us we've actually pushed the limit a little. We may have well pushed the limit depending on the physical symptoms. But if our body is in pain, it's trying to signal something to us. Hey, something might need to change here. When I was constantly overworking, my migraines were terrible. Like, I had migraines every time that I would need to do something extra, because it was my body's way of saying, you're already at capacity. We don't want to do that. Can we go lay down instead? And the migraine would force me to go lay down, but then I wouldn't really enjoy my rest time because I'm in pain. So these are all signals. And of course, there are some things that are physical, that are medical, that aren't based off of deeper levels of something. But I honestly think most of the things are intertwined. And we have to get literally into the core root of who we are and how we're showing up to begin to peel apart and be able to sort, what is mental, emotional, spiritual that's leading into the physical, and what's maybe I'm literally overexerting my body too much, or there is a nutritional deficiency, or there's something else physical going on. But these are all signals to look. So when we feel persistent anxiety, we feel numb, we're mood swingy, we're cranky, we don't have any joy in our activities anymore, and we're struggling to say how we really feel, this can also be a price of that modern achievement, of that keeping ourselves small and safe in our role, in how we quote unquote contribute to society. But that pressure feeling, that inescapable stress, can begin to really weigh on us. And then mentally, we can experience brain fog. We can struggle to focus because our brain is literally overloaded. And this can lead to overthinking, rumination, cycling thoughts. We're turning over the same stories over and over in our head, going, well, what if I did this? What if I did that? Never really getting to the core root of how maybe we are contributing to this definition of how we're supposed to show up. And that leads to that decreased sense of joy, which leads to less creativity, which leads to more stress because we're not expressing. And of course, decision fatigue and memory issues and that mental chatter, those can all begin to layer in. So again, these are all warning systems. We're overdoing it. So spiritually, we can feel like we have no purpose or meaning. Like, what's the point? I don't love this. Why am I doing this? And in that, if we are really like, oh, but that's what's expected of me, it's what I should do, that can lead to us completely unplugging from our intuition, from our higher selves, from our soul's drive, because we've had to do that to fit in. We've had to do that to get that promotion. We've had to do that to please our parents, whatever it looks like. And so we disconnect from who we really are. We disconnect from the messages of our soul and instead become increasingly more frustrated, dissociated, disconnected. And when we lack that awe and wonder in the world, when we lack that ability to be grateful and to see the beautiful things, we're going to feel like something's missing. We're going to feel like, again, what is the point in this? And so our level of trust in the world can really be diminished. Our trust in our own life's flow can really be diminished, and we lose that sacredness of life. And I have here, absence of ritual and sacred practice. Sometimes the rituals are literally making yourself a cup of tea in the morning and sitting down. Like, one of my most special rituals is to just make a cup of tea or cacao in the morning and sit down with my oracle slash tarot notebook, and I pull a card and I write affirmations and I just breathe. There's nothing, you know, super sparkly, magical, crazy ritual. It's just like, this is a ritual, a moment I choose to sink in and pause and be with before getting swept up in the hustle and grind. And oh my gosh, when on the days that I get swept up in the productivity and I immediately get led away into that, I feel frustrated. I feel a decreased sense of creativity. I feel overwhelmed because I haven't taken the time to connect with myself. And then, of course, the final high price of modern achievement is how we are in our communal relationships. And when we are constantly working, we're constantly striving, we're constantly pushing to achieve, we end up feeling very isolated and alone because we don't have the energy to connect. I hear stories about people who are like, I worked all day. I don't have any energy to socialize. I don't have the capacity to do these other activities. And I know that feeling big time. I'm there frequently when I push myself too much. So that's not a great pattern to stay stuck in, though, because it really leads to superficial connections and doom scrolling social media, not really connecting with people, and struggling to ask for help because we're caught in individualism. And then we just are slowly losing all sense of cultural tradition or celebration or tuning into the seasons because we're pushing ahead for that modern achievement. So yeah, I know it's not pretty to look at these things, but most of us, I would argue pretty much all of us, if you're in my world, I'd pretty much argue all of us are caught in the cycle of like, how do I live? How do I survive in the midst of capitalism, in the midst of having all these bills to pay, in the midst of being told by everyone to like achieve and live this life of purpose and mission and meaning, and often self martyrdom. It's a lot to take in, but we have to face it in order to begin to shift it. So let's start to talk about shifting it here. First, we have to understand where we came from. So why these things in the first place? So little history lesson. I'm not a huge history buff, but in these cases, I really love to look back and see like, why are we doing what we're doing? So in the 1500s into the 1600s, the development of the Protestant work ethic really came through. And Calvin introduced the concept that hard work was evidence of salvation. So this was literally religion and work coming together in what we'll call, quote unquote, modern Christianity, because this is still playing out today. I warned you we were going to get a little spicy. So we start to see actual theologians saying hard work is a sign that you are being saved, that you have achieved salvation by God. So then the Industrial Revolution happens, 1750s to the 1850s or so, and the rapid technology begins to create, bunches of people coming into cities. And this begins to change how people are working because now mass production and demand and all of this is starting to happen. So we start to see the erasure of those traditional artisans, of the farmers who are living amongst the land, and all of these like old ways of life begin to literally vanish because life is becoming mechanical, mechanized. It's becoming industrial. It's becoming something that can be rapidly reproduced so people can have more and more and more and more and more, which is not a great thing in my book because that's not sustainable. Nature gives us more in cycles of renewal, in cycles of growth and fallow and then growth and then rest. Like that's how nature works, not more infinitely into the future. So then, and this is where it gets really spicy, we see capitalism becoming religion in the Gilded Age. So 1850s to the 1950s, there was the rise of the robber barons. You might have heard of the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts, JP Morgan, those big names. They're still around for a reason. These groups of people literally came in and depleted our natural resources. They destroyed a lot of things, and they had the means and the resources to really influence systems behind the scenes, which directly led to essentially employee wage slavery. The people with the most concentrations of resources and power trickling the little breadcrumbs down to their peons, who become dependent on needing those breadcrumbs to merely survive because they have squashed competition, gobbled it all up, created monopolies, and are controlling the market. And this was one of the causes of the Great Depression. And spoiler alert, we're seeing so many of these themes coming up now because we've had this historical trajectory of getting to this point where capitalism has essentially become religion. So by the early 1900s, the religious aspects had started to fade, but the values were still remaining. Benjamin Franklin wrote a lot on frugality and hard work. I read I think it was either an autobiography or a semi-autobiographical work back in college. And yeah, there were some interesting thoughts happening in that man's mind is all I know. And so we again see these attitudes of like your hard work is going to pay off. If you're frugal, it's going to pay off. And that gets dispersed and spread to the average person who now begins to believe that this is the truth. And so that Protestant ethic gave quote, moral sanction to profit making through hard work, organization, and rational calculation. So we are seeing this like really hard line stance that making money and uh, getting more is a sign of salvation. It's a sign that you are worthy, that you're a hard worker, that you have done your due diligence, that you've thought it through, and that you are morally superior, that you have moral virtue because you're productive. So that corporate lobbying that continues through to today really promotes that productivity and moral virtue association. So 1950s to the 2000s and even into now, success has been really redefined as consumption rather than production. If you are able to afford fancy cars, brand name labels, if you're able to go on the Instagram perfect vacation, you are successful because you are able to consume these specific luxury resources. And the rise of corporate measurement systems quantify human value now. How much money do you make? What do you do? Not who are you? What do you love? What are your values? What are your dreams, right? It's what do you do is one of the first questions that we often ask about another person, because this is so in the background. It's so normal for us that we think more in terms of productivity and money and people's quote unquote value than we do their values. So the bigger question is who actually profits from this? So the economic systems that require constant growth and consumption profit from this. Shareholders, bottom line's got to go up. That's who's profiting off of that, right? That's who's really gaining, not the average worker, not the person trying to support their family, not the person trying to pursue their dreams through their entrepreneurial endeavors. No, the systems of people who already hold the majority of the power. Institutions that depend on people feeling inadequate. Oh my gosh, right? We are well beyond the makeup is a fun thing to do game and well into I need to look a certain way and I need to show up with my appearance in a certain way, and my skin needs to be flawless and my hair's got to look good. And like, again, I've lived all of these things, so I'm not shaming or blaming anyone because it's so ingrained in our culture. I mean, go look up the history of shaving for women. It's capitalism. It really is capitalism and nothing else. So companies selling solutions to problems they first created. Go look up women shaving. We see all the time a problem has been fabricated. Now here is a paid solution that you can use that's going to instantly fix or improve the problem that we've created. So really, it's the people at the top that continue to benefit from this, not the average person. So I'd love for you to just, if you have your journal, take 30 seconds here. We're just going to pause and consider this. Write down the first things that come to mind. What if success meant feeling whole and aligned rather than exhausted and fragmented? You might just jot down words about what this would feel like, how your body would feel. You might jot down what it would look like if you were successful based off feeling whole and aligned. But just take a moment. I'm just going to give you about 30 seconds here. What would this mean? And I really encourage you to sit with this well beyond this program today, to really chew on this. What would success look like, feel like, be like if you were feeling whole and aligned rather than exhausted and fragmented? So I'm going to give you some more ideas on what this might look like. And again, encourage you to really listen for that resonance, that moment where your soul's like, oh, yes, that's what I'm looking for. So let's break free. The way to begin breaking free and redefining success begins by asking, success according to who? Me or them? Me or mom and dad? Me or my college professor? Me or my supervisor? Where is the success coming from? What's the definition of success I'm using in this particular moment? Is it external or internal? Is it cultural programming about needing more and more and more and more and more? Or is it a deep seated sense of, yeah, I really like this. This is grounded. This is who I am and what I'm here to be. Is it coming from comparison and status anxiety? Or is it coming from, again, wow, I'm really rooted in who I am? Is that definition of success coming from generational definitions of success? Again, I grew up with the go to college, get a career, you'll never have to worry again. First of all, I had to go into debt to get the degree, to go into a job that didn't pay enough, to go into a career that was burning me out. It's a hot mess, and it doesn't let us be free. It doesn't give us this actual success we were promised. It gives us a whole lot of burnout and a whole lot of staying stuck. So, questioning who benefits from my current definition of success. I know for me, the only person or the only people who can benefit from my current definition of success is myself and anyone else trying to break free from the outdated definitions of success. If they're still trying to live in that old metric, my success isn't really going to help them. If they are on the verge of breaking free, it will. So we want people to benefit from our success. Of course, we're generous people, but we want us to benefit and it to be sustainable and benefit the community and the planet. And then is this soul aligned or is it societally appropriate? Great question. So as we build this bridge, we're trying to root into our intuition because as I've talked about a little bit before, our connection is this birthright, our connection to this earth, to this planet that we came in on, that our bodies are a part of. This connection is a birthright. And we have largely forgotten or abandoned it as a species. But we can take inspiration from our ancestors. We can take inspiration from current people living today, whether indigenous, aboriginal, or just people who have come back to the land, who have remembered their ancestral callings, or who have been called back to earth-based spiritualities. We can look to those people as inspiration on how to be sustainable, how to be seasonal, and how to be interconnected. And when we can connect with what is sustainable for ourselves and the planet, again, it benefits all, as I talked about in episode 1. So we get this compass that's beginning to point us forward towards authentic alignment rather than artificial success. And I just want to make a little note here. This is something that I talk about on another podcast that I have called Breaking the Barriers. But Earth Sense is a gift that many people I work with have. Whether you have this gift or not is okay. You can still connect to the planet whether you have this gift or not. But many people I work with have never had this validated. Some people have what's called the gift of Earth Sense, which is a person's innate ability to feel connected to and guided by Earth herself, perceiving the planet as a living, breathing entity. So again, if that resonates with you, you probably have Earth Sense. If you're like, oh, that's a little weird, that's okay too. But there are plenty of people who are tuned into the planet as a living, breathing entity. And those are the people that often come to me because they're so struggling with the fact that society is not seeing that piece of information, that the people around them are not respecting the interconnectedness of life. So I just want to validate that for those of you who may have never heard that is a real thing before. It absolutely is. So, the truth. Nature defines success as sustainability, not depletion, as cyclical rest, not perpetual production, as interdependence instead of isolation, as diversity instead of standardization, and as enough instead of excess. So these are such important markers because if we all lived sustainably, we had cycles of rest, we were interconnected and interdependent as a species, we respected diversity, and we operated under enough, not needing a hoard share of enough for, a whole small village for ourselves, we'd be in a very different place as a species. So this is where I want to begin to root in, and you get to explore what might your definition of soul aligned success look like. So nature's wisdom here, just some lessons. Nature replenishes what it uses. So if you look at the interconnectedness of how different plants give nutrients into the soil or take things and how they can have interdependent relationships, that is part of sustainability. It's also part of interdependence. And it's this everything has a cycle, everything has a purpose, everything has a place that continues the cycle of flow that can continue to repeat while also making room for expansion, right? Even if we kind of let nature do what nature's going to do, nature will expand over time. So we want that slow growth, not this like boom where all of a sudden we have so much resource. Even that in the garden ends up being a little excessive when you have a boom of resources and you can't possibly can things fast enough. But that is, something that can be managed. There's no point to having all of that. We need enough for ourselves, but we could give excess away instead of hoarding it, right? This is just beginning to change our relationship with how we look at things. Success, I really would love everyone to really integrate this. Success means leaving systems healthier than when you found them. What if that was your definition of success? I come into a system, I come into a community, I come into a natural environment, and I leave it healthier than when I found it. How magical would that be? How amazing would it be if everyone could do that? It's important for us to remember that, every system does have rest periods, every person, every season, everything. There is a need for dormancy and a need for rest. And if we're not giving ourselves that rest, it's going to be very hard to be successful. There is no dominant hierarchy in success. Success looks unique to every single person. It looks unique to every single business, to every single community. So if we can stop operating under hierarchy of something being superior to something else, we're going to feel a lot more of that soul aligned success coming through as well. And variation, not conformity. I love the saying, I don't compete, I stand out, because that saying to me really evokes that we're right for the people we're right for, right? If I stand out and I shine my light and I'm authentic and I do what's mine to do, then the right people are going to find me. They're going to be attracted to this energy and to the authenticity and to the purposefulness. Even if, because I see it all the time, there are people doing the same thing as me. But I honor diversity and the fact that for some other people, those other people doing that thing are going to be the right support and the right fit. I couldn't possibly be the only one on the planet doing what I'm doing. That would drive me absolutely bonkers. That'd be way too much pressure and way too much overwhelm. So, diversity is a blessing. It allows us to fill in each other's gaps, to build that community network, to support one another. So again, I would just love for you to continue to think about, well, what does nature do that could teach me about success? And of course, you can come back and review all of these things. So success is the ability to flourish while enabling all other parts of your ecosystem to flourish too. How can you begin to root in and find what you offer, what you do, what's sustainable for you that allows you to flourish while also enabling your family, your community, your friends, your business, the world to flourish too? I think that this is an important question. It's a heavy question, But again, I invite you to chew on it. What could this look like? So, redefining a more natural definition of success. Again, if there's any keywords that pop out to you here, maybe write them down because they're of value to you and something that you want to come back to. So, balance rather than constant growth. Balance could also be harmony because some people don't resonate with the word balance. That's totally fine. But harmony in your life rather than constant growth because that's not harmonized. Flowing with seasonal rhythms rather than perpetual productivity. The tongue twister. Flowing with the seasonal rhythms rather than perpetual productivity and action, because again, we need rest. Diversity rather than that standardization. So, looking for a variety of activities, a variety of clients, a variety of tasks, a variety of interests that keep you flowing, keep you inspired, keep you interested in what you're doing. Cooperation and collaboration rather than pure competition. Sometimes competition is great, can be great fun when we're all agreeing that we're having a competition together and it's friendly, not competing for resources, because we should be beyond that as a species at this point. There's plenty to go around. And remembering along that note that true abundance is through resource cycling rather than depletion. So, what would this really look like if the world were more aligned with this? Like, let's just dream bigger and better together. So, we would see communities that value contribution from an authentic place over status, someone being seen for the truth of who they are rather than what they could potentially contribute. Their work rhythms would be really honored, and seasonal energy and natural cycles would be honored so that we could kind of flow naturally with the planet. Well-being would be our marker of success rather than how much stuff we've accumulated. And we would see leadership embracing diversity, interdependence, and sustainability. Huge. And then, most importantly, perhaps in this modern era, technology would serve connection to nature and each other rather than replacing it. I could go on a soapbox about, what's happening out there in our industry right now when it comes to what connection really looks like. So we're going to wrap up today with a little activity, a little guided meditation. But here are just some suggestions. So as you go out into the wild, you're thinking about redefining your relationship with success, you're starting to chew on, like, what do I really want my life to look like? I invite you to observe and notice what really nourishes you versus what depletes you. I invite you to question and challenge your inherited definitions of what achievement and success are supposed to look like. I encourage you to experiment and try different success metrics based on your own well-being and alignment. So I don't look at how much money I'm making anymore. I look at how much fun I'm having in my life. And do I feel like I can keep doing it, or do I need to make some changes and tweak? To me, that's that well-being and alignment that I'm feeling joyous. Practice defining and developing rituals that really honor who you are, what your natural energy looks like, your preferences rather than how everybody else says to do it, right? I've definitely got caught in the trap of all the gurus that are like, if you wake up at 5 a.m. and you do this, you will be successful. No, you're never going to be successful by anyone else's definition. And then finally, connecting. So finding community where you can be authentically yourself instead of going by those outdated metrics. When we do this, you'll see these markers begin to come in. So you feel that alignment, you feel vitality in your body, you don't feel depleted. You're honoring your personal needs, you're honoring the planet, your creativity or awen, your life force or nuevra are working in harmony. Your decisions are benefiting all of life. And you move away from I have to this is what I want to express and this is how I feel. And your unique gifts really flow abundantly. So imagining the success. So let's just drop into some meditation here. I'm going to just lead us through a really quick force flow. So this force flow is something that I created to try and bridge the gaps of just all of the way I'd been taught to do business and like the metrics I was told to follow and the way that I should figure out what I'm doing. So the force method is a little bit more spiritual, a little bit more connected into all. And it's simply focus, observe, reflect, connect, and engage. So let's do that together. I am going to invite you to focus on your breath here in the present moment, just by following the inhale and the exhale in and out of your body. So just focusing, centering yourself as you breathe and be into this present moment. And as we breathe, we'll begin to observe, just scanning gently head to toe. What's happening in my body right now? What's happening in my thoughts and my feelings right now? Just observing these things without judgment, without having to latch onto them, just noticing what it's like in there. And then we'll begin to reflect. What has this discussion on success brought up for you? What are you turning over or chewing on right now that might be new information? Are you able to reflect on a changing definition of success within yourself right now? Just noticing, observing what comes up. And now we'll connect. We're going to connect both into your values and yourself. So just connecting inward to that spark of life and inspiration that exists within you. Connecting to your soul. Connecting to the values that you have here in this present life. Values like friendship, integrity, creativity, sustainability, just words that are of high value to you, things that are guideposts for your life. Connecting with those. And connecting outward now, collecting together that spark of inspiration of your soul, collecting your values, and connecting outward into your community, into your friendship group, to your family, to your business, to whatever outside entity you want to connect with. And see, imagine, feel, or sense what it's like to be connected with yourself and your values and show up in community with new definitions of success, with a new relationship with productivity, connecting with what's possible when you step into this level of awareness, intention, and integrity for your path forward. Connect with the idea that your success benefits you, your community, and the planet as a whole. Perhaps feeling a warmth radiating out from your chest, down your arms at the idea of the potential positive impact you get to make by showing up fully embodied, embracing what is yours to do, not society, not your parents, not any authority figures, but your definition of who you are, who you're here to be, and what you want to do, what you're called to do, not what you're supposed to do. Connecting with this self who is fully embodied and realizing your dreams, your desires, embodied in being who you are. And now we'll engage. We'll touch base with what aligned action, what empowered next step we could take to begin to embrace this new definition of success, to begin to sit with what we need to in order to move through and expand into a higher level, or even what we need to integrate, what we need to continue to chew on and be with so that it can solidify in our system. No matter where you're at or what your next steps are, here is where you choose to engage. So just noticing, again, you might tune back into the focus of the breath. You might observe the inner feelings. You might reflect on what's come up for you now that you have connected outward with yourself, with your values, with others. What can you do to engage with this inner material in your life as an empowered next step? Allowing yourself to set this intention, maybe even taking a moment to see yourself taking this next step, whether it's something like journaling, sharing with a friend, canceling a meeting on your schedule that's not aligned, whatever it might be. Just see yourself taking that action, engaging with this choice. And if it feels good to do so, just affirm to yourself, I will follow through. I will do this. And if it doesn't feel good to do so, the invitation is to continue to sit with what would actually be aligned and empowered for you to choose. And allow these answers to arise naturally over the course of living and being. I invite you to bring your hands to heart center if it feels good, just to make contact with yourself as you embrace this intention for your next empowered step, feeling that integrating. If you're not quite sure where you're going next, just making contact with yourself and assuring that you're going to show up, that you are going to continue to dive inward and question and explore what's possible next. And then we'll focus back in on the breath. If you chose to close your eyes, you can flutter them gently open and take some moments to look around your space. I call this the no tiger twist. You're going to hear me remind you of it a billion times because it's my number one tool for nervous system regulation and kind of coming back into land when we look around our space and we take in what's behind us, above us, below us, really recenters us. So I hope that you were able to tune in there to some of your relationship with success. And this force method flow is something that you can use with anything. You know, it could be about I need to make a choice and I need to consider my path forward in a relationship. There's no way you couldn't really use this, because the important part is that you then connect out and you make that choice about your empowered next step. That's really, really important. So glad you loved the no tiger twist and enjoyed that meditation. So, here is your invitation as you walk away from this week's episode is to redefine your definition of success. This is time to reconnect inward and maybe ask yourself these questions. Go forth and journal on them. What would success feel like if it were as natural as breathing, right? It was just who you are. Who you are is already successful. What would that feel like? And what one thing could you release that does not serve your authenticity and your soul aligned success? What could you release? There's something, I guarantee. We're all carrying around something that's not really ours. And then to commit to one aligned action this week that honors your soul driven desires, not societal metrics, not shoulds, not have tos, but something that's really driven by what you want to do for your life. So please consider all of these invitations, remembering they're invitations, that you are not required to do any of the quote unquote homework, but that these are all considerations for you to be with and consider. Again, what is your definition of success? What's right for you? What lights you up? That's what I want to see you doing. That's who I want to see you being, is this vibrantly alive because you're you, unique, beautiful, awe-inspiring you, without having to strive, without having to meet these societal definitions, without having to be anything that you are not. That's the dream that I have for every person on this planet, is that we get to embrace and embody the fullness of who we came here to be. You have a sacred blueprint that you wrote for yourself. You have preferences and desires and dreams and aspirations that are all yours for a reason. So continue to be with those things and see what comes up. So when we return, we'll be beginning to dive a little bit more into the seasons framework starting in episode 3. So I can't wait to join you in 2 weeks for that. But as always, if you need support, you can reach out to guide@safrianna.com. That is the easiest way to get in touch with me. If you have follow-up questions or there's anything that you want me to speak on in this program, please feel free to reach out and ask. I'm always happy to teach whatever people want to know. So I love you. I see you. I believe in you. I am cheering you on as always. It's an honor to be here. And thanks again to the Passionistas sisters for making this program possible. So I'll see you again in 2 weeks. I'm Safrianna Lughna, the Queer Spirit Guide, and I'm cheering you on. Bye for now.